So, with the recent episode of hearing about us on different sides of the country, we decided to come together this time to kind of talk about how Jordan and I kind of met, I guess, or really kind of started to understand each other through a lot of weird and quirky, a really long summer as teens, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to say it. As far as it goes, we spent a good amount of time together as far as, outside the podcast before we even decided to move in with each other. And with that amount of time, and being having very interesting ways of growing up, there's a few stories that, therein lie in that.
Yeah, and one of the first stories that comes to mind is kind of really the first time I heard of the mythical Jordan, right? So I was really good friends, still am really good friends with Aaron, who's been on this podcast a couple times now. Aaron invites me to his birthday party. I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll go to this, birthday party, which, in one thing, I kind of forget how cool birthday parties were as kids, all of your friends get together and you get free food and cake, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel birthday parties that are now are a little less lively, usually, people want to go out to dinner for a little bit, but there's no cool activities or just messing around or anything like that. It's very stifled, I would say.
Yeah, and I'd like to imagine even kids' birthday parties now are a little different because it seems like kids are getting phones younger and younger, so they're all probably, talking about Instagram or some app. But at this birthday party in particular, it was a revolutionary time for Aaron, right? And revolutionary time in tech. At one point, you guys may be listening to this, be like, what? One point, the iPod Touch was huge, right? People had their phones and an MP3 player at one point, and Spotify wasn't around you're still chilling on LimeWire or Pandora. And so Aaron gets this, iPod Touch, and basically, through the course of a couple events, we go and see a movie, and, some things occur at the movie. And basically after all that wraps up, which I'll save that story for with Aaron, we get back, and this whole time I've known Aaron, he's always talked about his older brother. Whether it's just weird stories or Jordan playing basketball, this and that. And I was like, all right, I want to meet this dude, and see if Aaron's legends meet up to this character. And we get back and we walk to the door, and Jordan is watching Spike TV at the time, watching some ninja, giant weapon show. So it's this dude's using a ninja sword and, cutting watermelons or fake dummies up. And the first thing I remember Jordan saying is you guys have to check this out.
See, it's very interesting because I have no recollection of some of this stuff. But knowing me at the time, that's definitely something that, I would be into.
Yeah. And at this point I was like, all right, things are living up. And of course, on the iPod Touch, you get some very unique apps out there. And I remember we were just kind of browsing through, we're sitting in this living room and we're browsing through app ideas. And, I think it was Aaron or Jordan was like, oh, let me get that was Easy Button, the big, I think it was Staples at the time did that. And I think at this point, Jordan was like, oh, they have that was Easy Button? I bet you they have a That's What She Said button.
Yeah, and I mean, until this day, I'm glad that, some things haven't changed. I'm still a big fan of the That's What She Said, and, proper taste and good timing. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that button.
Yeah, and vaguely, I was probably 12 or 13 at that time. And Jordan's 2 years older than I am. So at that time, all of us were stranded. In America, you can't drive. I don't know how it is in other countries, but you can't drive until you're 16 by yourself. So we're all just kind of kicking it, when we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of you're kind of left up to your own devices, especially if you don't if your parents aren't there to take you places or, busy and stuff like that. Julian, I'm curious, what is your opinion at this point of what's going on, with me and my brother, the place we're at?
Well, the first thing is knowing Aaron, if you're listening to this, it's true. Aaron's a very quirky, creative character, super free, very fun to be around, doesn't really care what other people think. And, you know, like you'd catch him wearing like his full basketball uniform to school. So I was like, I wonder if Jordan's similar in any ways. And, you know, meeting Jordan, like after a few times of hanging out and kind of feeling out this mythical character, like Jordan's very quirky in his ways, but they're very different on how it like interacts on a scale.
Yeah, I think that's very, you're right in the fact of, you know, there's some sort of varying degree, but I feel like we're on the same color. We just have like slightly different shades. And, you know, the more that you're around us, I'd say you're one of the people that know both of us the best, you know. So yeah, it's just a very like, you know, it's varying degrees of the same thing almost.
Yeah. And, you know, as you talked about varying degrees, summers just get, you know, very hot, right? And, as our friendship grew between, you know, Jordan and I, Aaron and I, you know, the relationship between Jordan and Aaron grew. Like summers as we got older, you know, you got to save money. So like, no, we never really believed in air conditioning. It kind of just always stayed a little bit warmer as where we are. It gets, you know, 105, 110 degrees in that realm. So as things got warmer, things definitely spiced up.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was an interesting thing about like, you know, me and my brother's childhood. For some reason, you know, the AC wasn't ran a lot. And as children, we didn't know getting like better enough that, you know, it's probably not normal that you kind of like are sweating just hanging out.
Yeah. So like as it got warmer, like, you know, you kind of get a little bit more relaxed and, you know, just hanging out. And I think at this point, Jordan finally has his license. And like I, you know, was a single child. So like I was just kind of lone wolf. And so like I would just, you know, the freedom that we had as children was unsurpassed. Like I would just walk like 2 miles across the city just to like hang out, and they would be like, you know what, let's go get something to eat. And like Aaron and I would often walk like a mile to Burger King, or like in some cases people would just be making their own concoctions of food.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things that I feel like is a very salient point in, you know, Julian's opinion of me, or like figuring out who I am. At this point, he doesn't know me very well, but knows me. And I guess, you know, in the house, you sometimes have to get creative with, you know, what you're going to eat. And, you know, that was one of the times I got creative, and Julian was there to witness it.
Yeah, and the thing about it too was like, we were on similar wavelengths. Like, you know, parents are at work, so you kind of have to fend for yourself, but you don't really have a job to get money. So like, you're kind of just working with what's in the cupboards. And I remember just like kind of rolling in, and I think Jordan had just like done a workout or something, and Aaron and I were chilling, playing some sort of video game, whether it be like Minecraft or Left 4 Dead or something along those lines. And we're all in the kitchen, and Jordan's like, I don't know what I'm going to make, but I'm going to throw these items together.
Yeah, and from my like memory, and Julian, tell me if I'm wrong, because I feel like this stands out more to you than it does me because of how, you know, sometimes often that this would happen. But I was frying peaches, and I fried something else. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing that I just remember being pretty clear is like, Aaron and I had ate, and we had ate like the last of whatever you were trying to eat, you know, the competition struggle. And I remember Jordan just somehow, you know, got this idea to bring out some peaches. I think they were canned, or they might have been fresh, and kind of just threw them into this frying pan. And I kind of like turned my head a little bit, and I was like, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, I'm just frying some peaches, and, you know, put some peaches in there. I want to say like put the bread in there to like kind of fry it. I want to say it might have been like a meat or something else that he had put into the frying pan. And he was pretty confident in the skill set at that point.
Yeah. And I feel like that's, Yeah, I mean, what a thing to witness. And granted, like, I'm not even stretching, like, Julian's not stretching the truth at this point. This stuff happens, and especially like in the house, like if there's a select few things that are just like, on point to eat, and then everything else is just a wild world out there. But yeah, no, 100%, I did that. And, I think the confidence came from doing weird things with food before then. So it was just kind of like, the run of the mill, all right, so let's just see what's breaking down right now.
Yeah, it's interesting as like a child, some of the, like when you don't really know how to cook for yourself or you don't really know like the combinations, some of the struggle food you kind of put together, like as much as it's like a PB&J to me is still kind of just struggle food. It's very simple, but like things would get elaborate to where like when I was, by myself, some of the struggle food I would make was like, I would try to like make like a pizza roll bagel, which are in my hindsight, like, why didn't I just buy bagel bites? Like it's the same thing. So like I'd make pizza rolls, which I haven't done in a while at this place, but, I would cut the pizza rolls in half and then put them on a bagel to make a bagel bite. So I was just doing extra work.
Wow, that's interesting. But at the same time, it's just like that sort of unadulterated creativity when it comes to the food that children eat when left to their own devices is pretty amazing. The things that you just come up with.
Yeah, I'd really like to think I was gaming the system at that point, getting a few different ingredients in there.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, I don't know what it is. And now I feel like, for some reason, the more that we talk about like the childhood and stuff, it brings back the, scenarios of, it's not just the food that was unique. It was like, some of the situations that we allowed ourselves to get in, especially around the house. I can remember, when ASL, like the Ice Bucket Challenge was going on. It was big. People were just like, filling up buckets of ice and then dumping it on themselves, and putting it on Facebook or whatever. And Julian comes along and, kind of mixes up the game.
Yeah. I don't know where I got the idea from, but like obviously people have done it and I had been tagged and we could all drive at that point, but I knew that I was hanging out with Aaron and Jordan that day, and I knew Aaron had to do it at some point, and I'm pretty sure Jordan had to do it at some point. And so I had this giant blue bucket, and like the way their house was kind of laid out is they had this very large, like asphalt backyard with like a basketball hoop and whatnot. So basically what we did was like we sent Jordan to the roof. And we ran the hose upwards into this giant bucket, probably like a 20-gallon bucket or so, and positioned the basketball hoop right below him and me under the basketball hoop. And then we dyed it all green, just so it was noticeable, kind of looked like slime. And then so I would go in and I would, dunk the ball, and then we'd pour the bucket of ice and green water on me. And I just remember that staining like my shoes and my shorts at the time.
Yeah, that stuff was pretty potent. And just like hearing that situation, it seems just so not a good idea. First off, I remember how sketchy it was on that roof holding that big bucket of water. And knowing that there's an asphalt below me, something cushy to break my fall.
It reminds me of, I think you were there for this, but it was around like 4th of July, and one of our other good friends, Ryan, was over, and we had created this device. It was just a bunch of like firecrackers or something together. And like we're expecting, like as kids, you're kind of naive, so you expect like you put all these things together and it's a huge explosion, which we're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. So basically we concocted this mashup of fireworks and firecrackers and stuff. And, one of us had the idea to like go put it in like a tunnel type thing so it'd make some serious noise. And I just remember like, I don't know, it was kind of like the middle of the night, I think. Going to this place and like placing the tunnel. I don't know. Do you remember like was it one of us that lit it, or was it?
Yeah, I think so. And just so everyone's clear, this story has gone past the statute of limitations, so you can't bust this.
So yeah, we're just in a public area. It was safe. There's no one around. And I just remember like thinking this thing's going to be extreme, like loud and, we're going to cause up a storm or whatever. And so we light this thing off and get like a head start. I assume some of the faster ones of us were a little bit closer to it, so the slower ones could get a head start. And so I guess we lit it at this point, and, it makes a pretty audible sound, like a noticeable, like, firecracker bomb type sound. And we all head for the hills. Like, we all have devised our own routes to get back to Jordan and Aaron's house. And so we all get back there, and we're really nervous to go back for some reason. Like, we think it might have caused some damage or something like that. And we go back the next day, and I'm pretty sure there's like a little scratch.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a little black mark where, the thing like burned or like singed a few things, or like just burnt itself and put it on the, the little tunnel. But it was like a very, very loud sound.
Yeah. And just little things like that like, were really fun, or got, the heart beating, were things we did often. Like the one, main component of really getting the blood rushing was a little game called Mario Party.
Yeah, and so Mario Party was, obviously I'm sure that most of the listeners know what Mario Party is, but if you don't, Mario Party is a Nintendo game that's been going on for quite a while, and basically what it breaks down to is you have people playing. So let's say there's 4 people playing, and the ultimate goal is to get stars. And so to get stars, you need to buy them with coins or win them in games. And so it's an endless cycle of, a set amount of turns, and it's all about getting the most amount of stars you can through mini games and, screwing people over and, creating alliances, whatever it takes to get these stars, you do it.
Yeah, and the people we played with were like, all of us were pretty confident in our skills. There was some definite trash talking, and like you win different awards from like most coins to most games to a few other things. And throughout this time, it's really competitive to where we would single out players to hope they wouldn't win or try to stop them from winning, as everyone does. And there's a certain occasion where we were all playing. It was probably a few games in. Once again, it was pretty warm in the house, so it's all 4 of us on one couch. Really, touching shoulders, trying to get a competitive advantage at any cost. And it's kind of comes down to a last few games.
Yeah, and obviously being the majority, and especially in that environment, you want to win. So you're trying as hard as you can. But I remember, I think I was really close to being like, the number one guy or something. And Mario Party, like Julian said, at the end, you'll get stars for, having the most events or doing doing certain things. And so at one point I needed the star to basically solidify the win and not be second or lose. And, the star like hovers over my name. I might have prematurely celebrated. And then like the next thing I know, like the star goes over to like Julian's character or something, and then he gets the star. And it was like a very insult to injury, because obviously it was hilarious to see, I jump up and like do the tiger fist bump, and then next thing I know, I'm a loser. So
the great thing about Mario Party 2 is like during all the mini games, like people definitely have their strong suit. So like, you get into one and maybe it was like you had to shake the Wii remote really quick, or you had to like strategically pick a pattern or run through certain doors. So like, tensions were high because people knew what they were good at and letting other people know that they were good at it. And so like, at this point, you have a good understanding of who's where. Like, this person probably has the most event wins, and this person has most coins. And like, so it just is it really, kind of brings together the core group of people playing through, kind of like us laughing and sweating and really letting one another know who was the top dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of somewhat reminds me of another time that I still can't believe to this day that it happened. I think we were playing video games. It was late at night, and Julian found something in the living room.
Yeah, so at this time, Minecraft was huge, and like Jordan's brother and I would play for quite some time. Like Jordan would go out and do something and we'd be on the couch, and he'd come back a few hours later and we'd be in the same position on the couch without any nutrients.
Absolutely. Like it was like nothing changed at all except the time of day.
Yeah. And so we all would eventually end up playing or just hanging out in that area, you know, playing like Would You Rather or like odd games or conversations, which Jordan and I've always kind of participated in. And I'm sitting down and I was looking over and I was like, guys, something just like moved about and is like hopping around. And they're like, no, that's definitely not happening. Like you're seeing things at this point. And I was like, oh, maybe. And it does it again. I'm like, guys, there's definitely something hopping around. I don't know what it is, but there's something moving. Like, I think it looks like a frog. They're like, why would a frog be in the house at this point? And so we just continue to play games, and I'm still kind of like on edge about this thing. Like, I'm not really sure what it is or what's happening, or if I'm just kind of going crazy from necessarily playing games for such a period of time.
Yeah, and eventually, like, this thing like comes into view, and Julian's adamant that there's a frog in this living room, and you know, eventually, so we like look at it. It's absolutely a frog in the living room. And
yeah, and the thing to this day is like I don't know how it got there. Like they weren't really near a large body of water or something that, you know, attract a frog.
No, not at all. And yeah, and I have no idea either. And I think that just lends to the point of just like what the hell. And also, I'm really curious. I really hope that you guys listening right now, you know, don't be afraid to like leave a comment or send us an email about what you're imagining that, you know, this like the conglomerate of childhoods were and what this house looked like, because it seems like a very interesting place just through the stories.
Yeah, and so this frog hops onto the scene. It's like in the middle between Aaron, Jordan, and I, and we all kind of just look at each other for a little bit and like really are trying to understand what to do. So like then you have three, you know, I think at least at the youngest age at that time is at least 16. So you have three like kind of late teenagers, mid teenagers trying to wrangle up a frog in a house. Yeah.
And yeah, those things are a little elusive, especially when they're not trying to be caught. Luckily, though, I actually had a frog when I was a kid, so I kind of like was a little more familiar with it. But yeah, I still can't believe to this day that it happened. Truly.
Yeah, it was just a bizarre occurrence. Like we captured it and let it out in the wild, and you know, Aaron probably said something, some sort of sermon for this frog to be free in the wild and keep pimping or something like that. And that was just one of, you know, that's just a few of many stories that occurred in like the occurrence of 2 or 3 summers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. And I think it's really cool that, you know, those experiences happened. I mean, there was no time where we were like truly unsafe or like, you know, in true danger. But, you know, not being supervised a lot of the time, I feel like lended to some very interesting and like, you know, very exploratory experiences.
Yeah. A lot of like maturity growth happened as well. And just like having that freedom and like, the ability to, you know, keep things in shape without things getting too wild. Just real fun time as children. I mean, like, I guess everyone has those stories, but that's kind of, you know, how Jordan and I connected and, you know, how this kind of, you know, you can see some instances of these weird topics converging to us kind of having an idea to put together a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's basically what is to thank for the Off the Top podcast itself.
Yeah. Go ahead and let us know what you think down below and, you know, the comments, or email us at theoffthetoppodcast@gmail.com. We'd really appreciate if you left us some ratings or feedback on whatever platform you listen on and help us kind of move up the charts of the podcast ranks.
Yeah. I mean, this this train's not slowing down, and the way that you can help it, become bigger and moving faster is doing all that stuff right there. But once again, thanks guys.